welcome back. I'm B. Today I'm discussing 28 Years Later, the long-awaited third movie in the franchise. I'm going to give a brief synopsis and then I'll go into my thoughts. All right, let's get into it. It has been nearly 3 decades since a rage virus first escaped from a biological weapons lab. Now the virus has been eradicated across continental Europe, but the British Isles are still under indefinite quarantine. A small, isolated community of survivors lives in a village connected to the mainland by a single, heavily defended causeway. The story centers on 12-year-old Spike and his family. His mother, Isla, is struggling with an unexplained illness, and his father, Jamie, is preparing Spike for a coming-of-age ritual. As part of this rite of passage, Jamie takes Spike across the causeway into the mainland, but what they find is far more than they expected. Strange changes in the infected, dangerous survivors, and long-buried secrets. It becomes clear that a lot has changed in these 28 years. So let's talk about what worked for me. I liked this movie. It kept me engaged the whole time. Going into this, I wasn't really sure what to expect since it's been so long since 28 Weeks Later. And I wasn't sure how this one would fit in tone-wise with the series, but it did pull me in right away. One of the things that really stood out was the tension. There are some great moments where the movie lets things breathe and allows the tension to build naturally. There's this constant feeling that something bad could happen at any moment, and that's exactly the kind of atmosphere I want from a movie like this. Especially when Jamie and Spike are exploring the mainland, you never quite know what they're going to run into, and it keeps you on edge. The visuals were another big plus for me. There's some really striking shots in the movie. You get a sense of how much the world has changed after all these years. I liked how nature has started to take over again, and the way certain areas looked completely abandoned and eerie really added to the atmosphere. And the acting was good across the board. The performances felt believable and grounded. Jamie felt like a regular person who has been hardened by years of survival, not some over-the-top action hero. Isla's storyline added more personal and emotional layer to the movie, which I really appreciated. And I thought Spike was really impressive. Sometimes child actors can be hit or miss in horror, but the actor here did a great job. He carried a lot of emotional weight and really sold the coming of age side of the story. One thing I liked seeing was the evolution of the infected. They've clearly changed over time, and the movie gives us glimpses of that in some interesting ways. But I do wish we got a little bit more explanation or even more time exploring how or why they changed. It raises a lot of questions about what's been happening in all these years that we didn't see. That said, there were also a few moments where I found myself questioning some of what we saw with the infected. I won't get into spoilers, but there were definitely a couple of scenes that left me curious about what exactly was going on. Hopefully, we'll get some more answers soon because there's supposed to be a new trilogy. The next movie, 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, is already scheduled to come out in January 2026. So I definitely am interested to see how they continue the story. In general, this movie, like the earlier ones in the series, uses the infected more as a backdrop. In my opinion, the focus in these movies has always been more about human behavior and how people react and survive in these post-apocalyptic settings. I actually think the tone here is more in line with 28 Days Later, since 28 Weeks Later had a bit more infected action. But again, across the series, what really stands out to me is the way these movies explore human nature and relationships in the middle of all this chaos. 28 Years Later is not packed with non-stop action or wall-to-wall infected scenes, and I know that might not be for everyone, but personally, I didn't mind that approach at all. The horror here still comes more from how people navigate this world than from constant attacks. And don't get me wrong, there are attacks and there are infected that are going after the main characters, but it still focuses on human nature. I have to mention the ending. I won't go into details, but it definitely threw me off a bit. It felt odd and left me with a lot of questions, not in a satisfying, I can't wait to see what happens next kind of way, but more like I wasn't sure how to feel about it. I'm still sitting with it, and I hope whatever comes next helps make sense of some of the choices made here. And even though I liked 28 Years Later overall, there's something about it that I can't quite put my finger on that kept me from loving it. Maybe it was the pacing. There were a few stretches that were a little slow or uneven. Maybe it was that certain emotional beats didn't hit as hard as I would have liked. Or maybe I was just hoping for something a little bit more or more of a payoff at the end. That being said, I did like the movie. It was atmospheric, not just a typical zombie movie, and the acting was good across the board. I'm definitely curious to see where they take the story from here. Coming out of the theater, I was thinking this was about a 3 out of 5, but after sitting with it for a day, reflecting on it a little more, I'm leaning more towards a 3.5. I usually rate my movies out of Scream Queens, so this is sitting at about a 3.5 Scream Queens for now. That might still change after a rewatch or depending on how the Bone Temple ties things together. So those are my thoughts on 28 Years Later. If you've seen it, I'd love to know your thoughts. Did the ending work for you? Are you curious about the Bone Temple? And how do you think this one compares to the earlier movies in the series? How many Scream Queens would you rate this movie? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more horror, sci-fi, and thriller content. Thanks for watching.